International Women's Day from World Renew Kenya.
How wonderful World Renew is supporting women's leadership. It's such a privilege. Go World Renew. Go Women's Day. We thank God for the women. Yay! Let's go Women's Day.
In World Renew, we empower women because we know empowered women bring results and they change the lives of the families.
At World Renew Kenya, we treasure women empowerment.
We work with women. We support them in village savings and loan association and also in maternal health care.
Encourage women as we celebrate this International Women's Day to be wise, like the 5 also virgins in the Bible.
And to all women out there, we celebrate you.
Join us this Saturday on KATV, starting from 9 a.m. as we commemorate International Women's Day.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this special edition of Women's Day program. I am Ruth Kaima from World Renew and serve as the Health and Gender Coordinator. And today we are celebrating the achievements and contributions of incredible women, particularly in the field of World Renew and her partners who have joined us today. Our discussion will be shining a light on the challenges, the triumphs of the women we work with, the impact that World Renew and her partners have in trying to make the world a better place. Just a little bit about World Renew. We are a faith-based international development and humanitarian organization that has been working since 1962 to address poverty, disasters, and injustice globally. With a presence in 19 countries, World Renew has been partnering with 64 local organizations to drive sustainable change. In Kenya, World Renew has been active since 1985, focusing on food security, health, economic empowerment, peace building, and justice. Through our partnerships with the Anglican Church, the ADSs in the 5 regions, and with some direct programming in Turkana, we prioritize community-led solutions, gender inclusion, and resilience building. Our work so far has impacted over 2 million people, fostering long-term sustainable development and community-driven transformation. Today, to celebrate this Women's Day with us, we have a panel of amazing panelists, 3 women who work in aid and who have been contributing in Kenya and within the African region towards driving change and development and the empowerment of women. To my left, we have Purity Kajendo. Welcome, Purity. Purity is the program manager at the Diakonia, Sweden, in the Kenya country office, and she has over 18 years of experience in the civil society sector. She has successfully led sustainable development initiatives focusing on gender justice, climate change, extractives, governance, and child rights, a strong activist for gender equality and social transformation. Purity has played a key role in policy influence and capacity building efforts across Kenya. She also is a wife and a mother, and I'm sure she's most proud of that one, of teenage boys. And she's deeply passionate about community-driven solutions that create lasting impact, particularly in empowering women and marginalized groups. We're so happy to have you, Purity.
Thank you.
Caroline, right in the middle, is a colleague and also a gender expert and gender and protection technical specialist for the Nature Plus program, which is under the Canadian Children's Bank, who World Renew is a part of. And she's working across Kenya, Mozambique, and Chimanini in Zimbabwe. She ensures that women and other vulnerable groups are actively included in climate action, conservation agriculture, and livelihood activities. Caroline is committed to promoting economic empowerment, leadership inclusion, and decision-making capacity for women in the Nature Plus project. Her work focuses on creating gender-responsive interventions that strengthen community resilience and sustainability development in climate and environmental conservation efforts. And in the true nature of women in the workplace, we are proud to say that Caroline came right to studio with her children and they're here very proudly watching their mommy today. So you can wave hi to your kids. That's how women work, and that is part of women empowerment. Last but not least, we have Metrine Lubanga. Metrine is a nutritionist, and she comes to us from our partner from the Anglican Development Services in Pwani, Kenya. She has been dedicated over the last few years in managing maternal and newborn child health projects, as well as adolescent reproductive health. She actively engages communities through working groups, ensuring that women have access to healthcare, nutrition, and economic information. Metrine is working really hard to bridge the gap between knowledge and foster healthier, more resilient communities. Her expertise is in public health, and she'll be discussing much more with us on maternal and child health and how this affects women empowerment in this day and age. So after I've said so much in introducing our wonderful panel, I'd just like to give each one of us, perhaps starting with Metrine, to share with us a little bit about your organization, ADS Pwani, and what your work and your day-to-day entails.
Yeah, thank you so much. I feel appreciated. I feel honored to be here today, and I would like to thank thanking the organizers and World New at Large for having me here. So as mentioned, I work for Anglican Development Services Pwani. So ADS Pwani is a faith-based organization, which is a development arm of the Anglican Church of Kenya. And so to say the Anglican Church being the development arm, thus the name Anglican Development Services. We are at Pwani, the coastal region of Kenya. I would say that because we have different ADS regions. We have ADS Nyanza, Western, and some in the Central Rift. But so at ADS Pwani, we do development programs, interventions within the communities, and we envision to be a lead change in the coastal region, empowering God's people towards resilient, godly and dignified lives. And our mission as an organization is to promote collaborative, impartial, and integral development of coastal communities to achieve self-sustainability in witness of Christ. The core values for our organization revolves on being holistic, having compassion, gender equity as one of the reasons as to why we are seated here today, stewardship of God's resources, and integrity. So in our organization as ADS Pwani, in the projects that we get to implement, we revolve around 4 thematic areas, that is food security and livelihoods. We have health as another thematic area. We also have institutional building and institutional strengthening and capacity building, and also health as another thematic area. So I'm privileged to be here, and I look forward to an interactive discussion that will be able to center around this special day, the International Women's Day. Thank you.
Thanks, Metrine. Purity, I'd like to invite you to tell us a little bit more about the Diakonia Sweden and the work that you're involved in your day-to-day.
Great. Thank you so much, Ruth. I'm very excited to be here today, and happy International Women's Day to everybody in the room and those that are watching us. Yes, my name is Purity. I work at Diakonia Sweden. We are a rights-based and faith-based organization headquartered in Sweden, and we focus on 4 thematic areas of democracy, governance, human rights and gender justice, and also climate justice. We are present in 25 countries, and here in Kenya, we are working in 28 counties, partnering with different civil society organizations who are think tanks, who are women's rights organizations and faith-based organizations, to power the work that we promote in the country. On democracy and human rights, we're involved in the electoral process, promoting engagement of women in the political space, the engagement of women in the economic space, and we're also involved in the public finance management of the country and encouraging citizen participation in the budgeting processes with a particular interest on vulnerable groups and especially women, which is critical for this particular day. And we are also involved in human rights, promoting access to justice, working with the justice delivery institutions, the police, the prisons, the laws, the courts of law, to be able to enhance access to justice for everybody, and particularly those that are vulnerable, and the women being a critical point for us. And finally, we work on climate justice, promoting the rights of communities in engaging in the climate adaptation and climate mitigation interventions. Thank you.
I love that you've talked about advocacy and working with the police and all these other arms, and we'll be delving much deeper into that as we go along. Caroline, a little bit about CFGB, environment, climate, agriculture, and what you're doing in that area.
Thank you very much, Ruth, for the opportunity to be in this panel. As she said earlier, my name is Caroline Musrete. I'm the Gender and Protection Manager for Nature Plus program that is working across 3 different regions. We are working in Kenya, where we are working with different organizations. CFGB is a member organization in that we don't directly implement our projects, but we work through partners. So for example, in Kenya, we are working with ADRA Kenya, NCCK, Fadhili Trust, and UDO, whereby we are implementing the Nature Plus program in Kibwezi and Kitui County. We are also working in Ethiopia through other member organizations, and we are also working in Chimanimari area, which cuts across Mozambique and Zimbabwe. The Nature Plus program is a climate, like just as the name suggests, it's a climate, nature-based solution, climate-based program, whereby we are implementing, our program has 3 pillars, whereby we are implementing nature-based solutions, whereby we are trying to mitigate the effects of climate change, but through nature-based solutions. As we all know that when climate change happens, the people who are affected more are women, because even the distance, when they are going to like fetch water, the distance is further than it usually is, and they can't even find firewood, they can't even find food for their families. So the burden of climate change is more on the women. So that is why the number 1 pillar for our program is nature-based solutions. And then the second pillar is on livelihoods, whereby as we focus on the nature-based solutions, we also try to find alternative and different livelihoods for our participants. And then the last pillar of our program is gender, whereby we try to involve all the women, because gender is not only about women, but it's about women and all the other vulnerable groups. So we ensure that as we do our nature-based solutions, as we do our livelihoods, we ensure that all the people, the vulnerable groups, the youth, the PWDs, even our elderly, they are all involved. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for all that introduction. I'm sure our viewers can hear how much we have to cover. So, thinking about all the years of experience and the different sectors that we have been in, what stands out for you as a key memory in your work of when you started to think and realize about what women actually go through on a day-to-day in terms of our programming?
I could go. Thank you, Ruth, for that question. Actually, in the morning, I kept thinking about today being the 69th celebration, and also the Beijing Platform for Action. And I remember 1995. I was a young girl then. I wasn't already in the working space, but I remember just finishing high school and hearing big names, of the Nyiva Mwendwa, the Honorable Ngilu. They had just come from the Beijing Platform of Action. And in as much as I didn't understand, there was a desire, to, these luminaries who have gone into this place. Of course, the reception wasn't quite nice. I mean, in terms of what how it was received, the agenda that they had. It felt like it's an agenda against the men, and there was all this narrative, in the society. But that reminds me, even as I come here and thinking, 30 years down the line, seeing the kind of progress that we have made in the country, and desiring that as a woman to be part of that change. Some of the programs that we have had and projects throughout my career has taken me to different parts of the country, and you realize the experiences of women are similar in certain ways, but they're also different in some certain ways depending on the context. You realize women bear the brunt of inequalities, bear the brunt of climate crisis in a way that is different from men. So those are some of the spark, that I had, engaging in this kind of work as a person. Yeah.
It's interesting you mentioned that. I was in primary school when our teachers came back and told us, we went to Beijing. And they kept telling us, girls, we have to step up now. We went to Beijing.
Yeah.
Any critical memory for you, Caroline?
Mine is what economic empowerment can do to women. Because I remember throughout my work, I've been working with different vulnerable groups. And most of the time we're now doing our entry into the community. We work with women that are very vulnerable, that they cannot even stand in front of people, they cannot even express themselves. But through our interventions like livelihoods, VSLA, village savings and loanings, these women are somehow economically empowered. And through the economic empowerment, they are able to now have voices in their community. Some of them are even chosen as leaders. And I can even remember one woman coming to us and showing us how just through having her own money, she has been able to buy her clothes. Like buying clothes seems like a simple thing to some of us, but now through that economic empowerment, she has been able to do various things and she was very excited about it. That is why I like to me, if we economically empower the women, then we don't even need to talk about inclusion and everything. Like economic empowerment is everything to women.
Yeah. I was amazed when Purity was sharing. She mentioned 1995, and I was like, that was the very year I was born. Oh, really? So I'm like, hey, there is a journey that I'm supposed to walk. Okay. Dating back to the data we've had as a country on maternal deaths is something that holds me to see to it that there is an impact that as women can have on matters health, and as we focus on maternal health, that is to say. And with this, my passion is to see to it that there is that quality health care that women are able to get. You can imagine a woman conceiving, and then at the end of the day, she's not able to carry that baby on her hands, that bundle of joy. It's something that moves me to see to it that I have that passion to be able to inspire women to have quality knowledge on what they need to have as it pertains maternal health care. Yeah, thank you.
I like that you brought in the health part, and that's a huge passion for me. Because I remember when I just started working and I didn't understand why a woman would be on the ward needing a cesarean section, or I'd witness women who the child under 5 years old needs an intervention, and women are saying, oh, I still have to wait for my husband to come and make the decision, or I have to wait for my in-laws. And that really took me aback, especially coming from a household where I must say, my father allowed us to make decisions. And for me, it was wild. Like, how can a woman still be waiting to make a critical decision about a child she has born, or a child that she has within her that needs to be gotten out through intervention, and we're still waiting for decisions. To think that there are women in this day and age who are excited about being able to have the autonomy to buy a dress. I think that is very sobering. And I just want us to now narrow down to the actions we have taken as projects or as project workers or women in aid. What would you say has been some of the critical interventions that you have done or witnessed that have made a huge difference in empowering women, especially in the area of decision making? And if you could, Metrine, touch on issues like reproductive health rights, and for those of us in climate, and especially in the advocacy space, Purity, and working with external actors like the police. What are some of those interventions that have opened up the space for the women that you work with?
Yeah, I'll go. So for ADS Body as an organization, having implemented the maternal and newborn child health project in one of the communities, I think this is the best discussion that I would love to be part of. And looking at the aspect of decision making, just as you mentioned, there is that which comes into maybe a woman in the aspect of health. And when they want to make decisions within themselves, it becomes difficult for them because we understand that in the Kenyan culture and the community at large, the men have got men are the sole decision makers in the families. So you find to it that it will be difficult for a woman to make decisions. But as part of the intervention, we've had the trainings done through our community working groups. That is, we work with community health promoters. So we train them to be able to go do household visits and talk to these women, and also through the mother-to-mother support groups, where they get to share the knowledge to understand what is right for them as matters health, to be able to make right decisions in their households. That it will not now wait for maybe the husband to come and give a go-ahead that I'm not supposed to do this. Okay, that is dated back then, but as we are looking at the progress of the project and the interventions that we are carrying out, much success is being registered right now. For instance, just to give an example, you'll find that the numbers for women now attending antenatal visits has gone up, and previously you would find these women not going to these antenatal visits. So previously we were talking even of at least 4+ visits, but right now I'm happy we are registering 8+. So that is a great impact that I'm seeing. Another thing I would mention is on the reduction of the number of home deliveries. You'll find that within the communities, these women, when they get pregnant, they don't go for clinics, then they do deliveries at home. But after this knowledge has been impacted to them through the project, through the organization, it's been easier for them to at least do the plannings that they are able now to access quality services at the health facility. And we're not just talking about them getting to achieve this, but rather what is the point that is getting to connect them to be able to do this. So that brings to the part of economic empowerment to these women that we also do through what we term as the village savings and loaning associations. We encourage them to save so that even as they get pregnant, they'll be able to do birth plans and have the preparedness that by the time they are approaching delivery, they can be able to plan themselves and go to seek health facility services. Yeah.
Just before we move on from you and get into issues, climate and environment, what is the place of men? If I want to go for my ANC, my antenatal clinic, I've made the decision. Because oftentimes I know Carol will tell us women are going to bear the brunt of doing the agricultural bits. They do the farming, then they have to give the money to the husband, and then now how do I get my 20 shillings to go and get a card at the health facility? As a project, how are you making sure that I'm able to have this conversation with my husband and say, when it comes to the household budget, I need ABCD for my health and for the health of my children?
Well, so we bring in an aspect of inclusion and looking at that for us as a project to have male involvement, in the sense that in the communities that you're working with, we have 2 representatives as male champions for the male in the communities. So you'll find these men going to gather the fellow men and talk to them about how important it is for them to take part in maternal health. Like, if I thrive as a woman because my husband has supported me in my health, I'll be able to be happy bring up that kid. In the essence that there are practices that they have been having in their communities. So as these male champions voice up to speak to the other men on the importance of the male in the community getting to be part of it, then it brings a positive shift. And this is to say, like, if I have land as an infrastructure that I would use maybe to bring up some resources for me to use as a woman in the village or rather in the community, what is the take of this husband concerning that land that I'm having? Because you'll find that as much as we will own that land as a family, there is that decision part of it. For instance, if I want to plant maybe vegetables to see to it that they're going to help me out, you'll find other men saying that I do not want such to be planted on my farm. Because yes, there is that infrastructure as land, but then the accessibility part by these women becomes an issue. So when you get to involve the men, they are able to be voices for other men, and this will impact the families within the community.
Thank you, Matrine. Nature Plus is a really interesting project, especially when coming to the angle of agriculture. You mentioned looking for firewood, the impact of climate change. What have you done to ensure that women are not feeling the effects as much of climate change through Nature Plus?
Thank you for that question. And as you say, Nature Plus is a very wide topic. So, what have we done to ensure that women are not feeling the brand? As we all know, Nature Plus is not working in a vacuum. It's working in a cultural setting within our communities. And as such, the culture plays a very major role in how the women will feel the impact of the climate change. So most of the time when we go into these communities, we ensure, when we are like looking to our participants, we ensure that at least 50% of our participants are women. So in doing that, we ensure that we are already bringing the women on board. We are already bringing them on the table for decision making. We are not just leaving them to be bystanders, but by bringing them on board, we ensure that they are already part of our group. And then after that, we do trainings. We do when we are, because Nature Plus, we are dealing with how to mitigate nature. I mean, the impact of climate change. So we have to train these communities who are living in these communities. For example, in Kitui, where we have a lot of, we are working along the Earth River basin. We are trying to rehabilitate it. So when we are doing the trainings for how to prevent erosion and whatnot, we ensure that women are part of this training. And then again, as Metrin said, you cannot just talk to the women and leave the men, because men, in as much as we try, the men still remain the decision makers. So we try our best to ensure that we are including men and women, whereby we are training them on how to mitigate these changes. And then in terms of maybe if we are planting tree nurseries, you know that women can plant the trees, but the land and even the tree, once it's a grown tree, it belongs to the man. So we have to we have to work together the men and the women, and even we are working with the schools, the school-going children, because climate change, it affects everyone. So we are ensuring that we are not leaving anyone behind. So we start with the trainings, and sometimes we are providing them with seedlings to plant, because as I said, we have 3 pillars. So the first one is nature-based solution, the other one is livelihoods, so that as we look for alternatives of livelihood, because maybe they are depending on charcoal burning for their livelihood. So we provide them with alternative livelihoods like kitchen garden, village saving and learning, so that to ensure we are training them on businesses to ensure that they have to get this climate change impact. So it's a matter of not leaving anyone behind in terms of climate change. Because you leave someone behind, they will undo whatever you've tried to do.
I like that. We must all move together. Yeah. Tell us about the role of advocacy in accelerating women's empowerment, and what has your role been, and your experience working with other actors, government, police, judiciary?
Yeah, great, thanks Ruth for that. When we think about advocacy, a lot of times we position advocacy on policy advocacy, but there's also advocacy at different levels, including community advocacy. I'll talk about briefly about the policy advocacy, because when you look at the participation of women in legislation and policy processes, we are talking about here decisions about the body. Now, we have not even gotten to the point of decisions about outside the body. You know, for women, policy is extremely important. I think one of the achievements we've had as a country is positioning the women's agenda and the gender agenda in the constitution of the country. And Diaconia and the partners, we were actively involved in that process of positioning the gender components within the constitution, the highest law of the land. And from there, you have an opportunity now to have laws and policies that then begin to respect women, begin to appreciate the role of women in different places. So policy is very critical, because then if the issues and the perspectives of women are not included in the policies, then it's difficult to actualize them on the ground. I think the fact that we have had various laws that now acknowledge certain vices that are against women, for instance, the gender-based violence, we have the Sexual Offences Act, all those policies allow us, when we come to the ground, to be able to say that this kind of practice for a woman is not right, and also it is against the law. You have somewhere to hinge your argument, you have somewhere to hinge the interventions that we are working with. And maybe just to say that the process is, we have to challenge some of the patriarchal norms and practices that we hold as a society. The law can be there. For instance, we have the FGM Act of 2011, I think. It was it's an act that was there very long ago. But even to date, there are women and girls who are still going there through the FGM as a practice, a retrogressive practice. Meaning there is what you secure in the law, which is fantastic, and continue engaging in that process. But there's a lot more work that happens in the norms and culture and practices of the human beings, or the societies where we live, because we also live in those societies, to be able to actualize human rights for the women. So we have engaged in promoting gender perspectives and engendering laws and policies. I'll talk about one, like within the mining sector. In 2016 through, we have had regulations that we have been involved in that have incorporated women's perspectives in the mining sector. I remember one example, Ruth, if you would, where as a result of the women who are engaging in artisanal mining, they were not aware about the law and the provisions of the law that allowed them. And so you'd have the men are the ones who go and get the gold mine, go to the shaft, and the women are out here, and wakifika mugao ya pesa, of course you are not considered very strongly, and also not knowing that the law provides that you can actually be able to go and do artisanal mining on your own. That is just one of the examples. So introducing or engaging the women to first understand there's a law, and if there is a legal process going on, also incorporating their views in the whole process allows their needs to be met, and for them to be able to actualize their rights. So we have been involved in that whole process. When you think about the prisons and the police work, again, in terms of establishment of gender desks and child protection units, you realize there's a lot of work. There is the law that says that should be there. When the country talks about strides that we have made in gender-based violence, those are some of the things we're talking about. And now we have trained police officers, we have established gender desks and child protection units, but there are people who need to use those facilities. So having the women understanding that they can be able to go to those places, that it's as a result of the advocacy processes that you have had, and they can be able to be attended and access justice in those places. So those are some of the areas that we have been involved in as an organization. With success, but also there are challenges, and I'm sure we'll be talking about the challenges as we go along.
Yeah, definitely there are challenges, and I'm thinking from what you have said, we have policies, we have agreements all the way up from the UN bodies, all the way down into our constitution, and I'd like to put Petrine on the spot here a little bit. When it comes to the implementation, we're working very closely with women. What are you seeing on the field when it actually comes to women and adolescents approaching these gender desks at the police station, attending clinic when they have injuries because of gender-based violence? What has been your experience in the community and taking this up? I know you also have done some education on the law to the community. How has show us how it's flowing down all the way from all those policies up there. Now, what does it look like on the ground? Are we doing well?
Yeah, I will start by saying we are not doing well, and maybe picking from what Purity shared is as much as there is advocacy, and as much as we are looking at a bigger picture where these human rights will be picked up by people and having justice prevail, it's not working. I would confidently say that. The reason is we had the norms that were within the communities, and let's to say, even as the trainings were happening to the community health promoters and getting to have these community members understand that they have their rights. At some point, it just comes up in the sense that there is these people in the community which get to say that we want to solve amicably within the families, as in we want to protect the family name, you see. For instance, if a perpetrator maybe is an uncle, and maybe the case now wants to come up, they will start by saying, no, this we want to solve it amicably within the family, and so it doesn't go up. It tailors me back to a center where you see, if maybe a teacher, because there is that position in the community, a teacher is respected, and so they get to look at him as somebody who is above the law. So if a teacher is the one who has done the perpetration, then he's not taken to any other fields to see to it that justice has prevailed to the one that has been, that justice has not been done to him or her. So maybe to answer your question on the part that we are looking at in the community structures, you'll find that if a case arises maybe on gender-based violence, we'll start by bringing up that case to the chief's office, and it follows up to the police stations to be able to find that justice. But again, I said it does not work, because at the end of the day, when you get to follow up that case, you will find the people have gone back to the community, and they tell you we finished it up as a family. So it becomes so difficult.
Wow, yeah. The line between justice and family. But Caroline, when you talk about labor, and as a woman I have farmed, I have protected the forest, I have done whatever, and now as Pirit also mentioned, it's time for the payments or money to be split between those of us who have done the work. If I as a woman am feeling I'm not getting my rights, where can I go? Do you feel have you seen like their systems and these policies, have you seen them in action in the field of climate change and agriculture?
Thank you for that question. Like, sincerely speaking, like maybe even the cases of gender-based violence, there is somewhere you can go. But the cases of economic violence on women, there's literally nowhere to go, because you will do the labor, you will do everything, but even the person who is coming to pay you will be negotiating for whatever you are selling with your husband. He will not even be negotiating with you. And then now, once your husband or your spouse gets the money, it's upon him to give you whatever he or she feels. So you'll find that it's sometimes even during harvesting time or during like the selling season, even the cases of gender-based violence usually go up because there are a lot of conflicts within the family, because it's this one who did the labor and it's another person who is receiving the money. And it's not even only the case of harvesting, even at times of share outs in the village savings and loanings. You find that during the time of share outs, the number of gender-based violence cases goes up, because the men know that it is like in December, you can even find it on social media, people joking about it, that since it's December, it's time for share out, you need to treat your wives very well, because they have money.
The money from the chama should be coming in any minute.
Yes. And that is why even some of our VSLS, they don't do the share outs in December. The share out time is very anonymous, just to avoid such type of conflicts. So I feel like for the other cases of gender-based violence, it's easier to report. But for the economic violence, it's very hard. A woman has to negotiate again and beg for her to be given a share. And that is why at CFGB, we train a lot on women leadership, decision making, inclusion, and also we try talking to men so that they can see the benefits, and they can see the benefit of including women in not only in decision making, not only in other things, but also in the income of the household, because there's nowhere you can go to report about economic violence.
So what I'm hearing is that we are not up in arms and saying it's a fight against men versus women, but it's about us coming to the table and talking about how we're making the decisions, how we're sharing out the resources that we have.
Yes.
And I think it's not so far-fetched from whether educated or uneducated, but even as people of faith, I think there's the notion of the good wife comes and surrenders her payslip to her husband and says, "Sir, what do we do?" Which is not a bad thing, perhaps, but we are saying, how do we make the decision together?
Yes.
So now I just want to segue into thinking about now, if there are all these challenges and gaps that we're still facing, in your opinion, what do women still need? And what do we still need to do in order for women's empowerment to be accelerated? If you are given a blank slate, what do we still need to do?
Thank you, Ruth. And I know you said that we need to sit and negotiate. Sometimes when you think about human rights, haki haipeanwi inadaiwa.
There's not that in
haki haipeanwi means a right is not given. You claim it. Yeah. And I think it's time also, and I know there are all those engagements within our programming where we need to focus on the women's capacity and capabilities to claim their rights. Because when you talk about there are issues to do with access and control, of productive assets. You are in communities where women can only own chicken.
Yes.
You get, she cannot own, or if she owns a goat, it's probably the goat that had some linkage to her dowry, and cows, she cannot own a cow, she cannot own a camel. Now, if you're talking about economic inclusion, already you're excluding. How many chicken do you have to sell for you to make $1 million? And how many cows do you need to sell? Now that you cannot own a cow, it's the men who are owning a cow. I think there's a level of us being bold enough to challenge some of these patriarchal norms and practices that continue to leave women in a place of disempowerment. Because then, and even within our programs sometimes, because we'll come with climate change adaptation programs, and we want to reinforce the same cultural norms, because women are allowed to own chicken, therefore our climate change adaptation project is about chicken. And we celebrate the chicken. It's a good thing, but then we are not addressing the structural issues that are causing the women to be in that situation. So I think we need, there's a bit of fighting in a nice way, that we need to be able to have the women have the capacity, have the knowledge and the skills to be able to claim their rights within their households and also in the community. They are strong. So that quadrant of capacity, capability, building the agency of women so they can speak their mind at home and also within the communities. And also engaging with the men, because again, it's a power issue, being able to see, the need and the value that women bring on board in this kind of context. So I just felt I needed to bring that so that it's not just sliding into some niceties. Because where we have come from, especially in the women's rights movement, it has not been nice. It has not been easy. For us to be able to get our position in the Constitution, it was not easy, And now the laws, and even now there is still fighting. I mean, you've seen the femicide issue happening in the country, and now saying, oh, we need a law. Of course, there's already a law that can prosecute. However, we still need to be able to say, okay, umeshika, have you arrested? Where are they? That is not an easy negotiation, nice table, nice talking. We need to be able to confront and challenge some of these practices that we see across board. And it's across all sectors. It's not just within specific sectors. So now I've forgotten your question.
No, you actually answered it, because what I'm hearing is that one of the things we still need is to actually learn to fight.
Yes.
And that sometimes it's not a nice negotiation. And that we need to actually learn to be able to empower women to push back.
Yes, and I maybe just to add as well on the laws and policies, because I think we are all saying that the laws and policies exist, but the implementation is a challenge. And sometimes implementation is a challenge because there is no resourcing for it. You have a law that talks about you should have this establishment. For instance, let me use the gender desks just as an example. There is a law that says now we are enhancing women's rights protection, and we have this law, and part of the law and the regulations require that we should have reporting places that are secure for women. but there's no resourcing for it. A, it is not there. B, the people are not the manpower to run that.
Yeah.
C, the referral pathway for a woman who has been violated has gaps, you know. So I remember a case last year when we celebrated 16 days of activism in Baringo, actually. And on our way back, we received a case of sodomy. And we are saying, okay, simu reporting, go and report. They go to the police station, hakuna mafuta, to move from point A to wherever point. So they have arrested the culprit, but the law again requires that you don't keep the culprit beyond 24 hours.
Yeah.
So what do? You release them. Yeah. So how are we enhancing? There's got to be resources to enable implementation of the laws and policies that we are agitating for. And just being aware that it is not, the law in itself is not fully the answer to the issues to do with women empowerment. There's much more. There's money that we have to put in for it to be a reality.
Yes. Yeah, I like that. Resourcing. Yeah. You look like you have something to say, Caroline.
I'm just looking at her talking and I'm thinking it's all about our culture. And it doesn't even matter which level of civilization we are in. I think the world as it is, it's a patriarchal society. Like men, even the ladies, the ones who are saying that they need to put up a fight, they are not even, some of them are not even aware of their rights. They are not even ready to take the rights because they believe it's a man's world. So unless we change the culture around patriarchy, because even it's not only in our African cultures, even in our religion, it's the men. Like even the Bible says the women are the neck. So so wherever the head turns, yeah. So I think it's all about culture, and unless we do something about the culture, then there's no way we are going to win this fight. So that is why we have to, like I said, we have to leave no one behind, especially the men who are power holders. And also we need to be very careful to balance, again, bring men on board, but ensuring that the men are not taking over the whole process. Yes. Because women know what's best for them.
Fighting, resourcing, culture, Beatrice, anything else you think that women need?
For me, I'll agree with what they have shared. And maybe just to tailor it to the project I'm doing, would say maternal and newborn child health is not just a health issue, but maybe to say it's a human rights and gender equality issue. So looking at that, there is more need to do what we say, resourcing and advocacy still, for women to find their space to be able to stand and voice up on their own. Because it's been part of them getting to depend on what has the man said. But if at all we'll have a community where the women will stand with their voice and say, this is the way we want to go, then it will be good for us.
I feel like it's getting heated. Like now we have so much to say, and it seems like we've also rallied up the live audience. Thank you so much for those who are following us. We are getting your comments. James Mutuku says he's watching from Pipeline and he wants to wish his wife a happy Women's Day for always being there for their family. Oh, isn't that lovely? Yeah. Dr. Catherine says, I love the discussion and keep on pushing, ladies. She got your point, purity. Fight. We are making it. There's value that will bring on board across all platforms and sectors. Keep on advocating for women's rights. She's watching from Nakuru. Wow. We have DJ Isao, who is watching from Mulolongo. KPN Online TV team, good job team. Substone Mulei, Substone, thanks for tuning in. Substone is actually the head of finance, our finance manager at World Renew. Can you imagine? So we even have the finance guys on board. We are that noisy. Even our CD, all our team, everyone is just into, women and gender. And we're just loving that we've even brought accounts on board. So financing Substone. Evelyn Lodeni is saying happy Women's Day. Evelyn is also very critical to some of the work that we do as our admin. We have David Kangani, Musheri. Thank you all so much for tuning in, even as we continue to discuss this interesting topic. I just want us to come a little bit to these, to the flow of reporting. I think that is one thing that has really sparked a discussion here. For those of us who are watching and those who are following, who may not be aware of what does the system in Kenya actually look like for when rights have been violated. Let's narrow it down to say gender-based violence. If something happened to me today, if something happened to my child, if something happened to a relative, what steps am I supposed to take before I get to there's no fuel for the policeman's car? But at least what should I have at least made sure I have done in order to be able to fight?
Thank you. There are many ways to look at it. If it is a defilement of a child, there is a referral pathway where, yes, there's reporting for the police station, but also going to the health facilities. And that is where now GBV links to the health facility, where there's a forms that have to be filled, and a medical examination conducted, not just for defilement actually, for all, even assault, then the P3 is filled and all that. And then the case, if there's a presence of a gender desk or a gender officer, that is where the reporting would happen, and given an OB that that you have reported this issue. Of course, there are those basics of if it's a rape issue or if it's a defilement issue, what you need to do, you don't wash the child, or you don't wash as a lady, It's not a very dignifying space to be, but that is how then we're able to keep the evidence, so that then when we pursue the court process, then there is evidence that is presented that this particular issue or this violation did happen. So at the police station, you should be received, within the desks, depending on what the nature of the police station, and then the case is picked up, And there is always support for legal aid, either, not always. Always is an ideal situation. There should be, depending on what kind of a police station it is, for support for the woman or the man who's violated, because also we've had gender-based violence that is meted. The other critical thing, and probably that is why I think it's Metrin who was talking about, we go and we decide. Solidarity for the victim or survivor of GBV especially is very critical. This is not an easy journey for the one who has gone through the gender, even coming out to be able to speak about it or to come and report. If it is especially within the family, it's not an easy. You're probably standing against your uncle or your brother or your father. That's not an easy space to go. So there's need really for a lot of support, social support. And I know, like in some of the projects we have had, we have gender champions, GBV champions, who then are positioned in different villages. If it happens, of course, we pray that this thing ends so that we don't have these cases. But when it happens, then they rally you to be able to go through the process, even of reporting and what you need to do, and after. Because sometimes some of these cases, again, they take so long, You'll find, the court process has a very long list, a cost list perhaps, to be able, unafikiwa at a certain day. And places where you don't have even the law courts present, you have to go very long distances. That requires a lot of psychosocial support, and also the mental health support as well for the people who are going through GBV, to be able to, to be in a space they can be able to handle their lives now and moving forward. So the whole journey is not an easy one. We need each other, and also we need us to stop normalizing it. Stop normalizing it. It's not normal. Even in communities, we've had where wife beating is the norm. And I'm talking about last year, where we asked a group of men in a certain region that I shall not say. And all of them lift their hands. We have beat our women in the last 1 week to Memchapa. So just saying that it's not normal, something needs to happen. It needs to stop. And when it happens, then there is a referral pathway, how the reporting can happen.
Thank you. As she mentioned, I just remembered a bit on the aspect of safeguarding. We have the gender champions within the community, but as they do the whistleblowing and giving information of what seems confident for them that have done that, to be able to follow up the cases for justice, it's also another issue to look at and see to it that what is their safe space, even as they give this crucial information for someone to get justice.
And I think there are also opportunities within some of the organizations, especially the women's rights organizations. If you think about the feeders who can be able to provide certain support, there are toll-free lines that one can be able to call, whether it's within the children's space, the free child line numbers, so that then the reporting, this has happened, to provide legal aid or legal clinic for especially women who are going through that. So maybe exploring, and those are some of the things you expect should be happening on the ground, but sometimes it is not the case, So perhaps the agencies that are there, of course, we take up some of these roles. Yet it's the government's role really to be able to provide that kind of support. Yeah.
And go ahead before I ask that.
I think the challenge of the referral pathway is sometimes it's the lack of coordination between the victim to the agencies that are involved. Because you might find that one agency is offering legal aid, and then they have someone they need to offer the aid to, but they don't have the means of transport to come to the organization to seek for that legal aid. And then the issue of culture again, you cannot expose your family. So maybe someone is willing to pursue justice, but again, because of the culture, they cannot do that. So it's the lack of coordination to do that. That is the major challenge. There is no straight line.
Yeah.
After this, you can go this. And along the way, the case just disappears. Because I was working in Turkana, and World Vision was offering legal aid. But at the end of the financial year, they had to reimburse back the money because no one showed up for the legal aid. Yet there were so many cases of GBV. And sometimes because of the processes, the people now, the agencies, we had to fundraise from our own pockets to pursue some of these cases. So it's not a straight line.
It really is not a straight line.
Yeah.
As a man, what would you like to see change in the woman that you're living with, and what change would you want to see in that family that you're bringing up? Because if you voice up that for your family, it will be easier for you to go out and do it to other men and the community at large. And again, also looking at the barriers that stop these women finding their rights. If at all they will be able to fight these barriers that cause women not to access their rights, it will be, let's say, a beautiful place to stay in, because there will be easy access for these women to get their rights.
As for the Canadian Food Grains Bank, we believe that transformation starts from the households. So we are trying to use transformative household methodologies, such as the gender action learning, the girls methodology, whereby we have some tools that are used to address the men. For example, we have a gender balance tree, whereby maybe in a training session, we separate the men and the women, and then we tell them each of them to identify the role they play in their communities, what do they own, the roots is what they own, then the activities and how each one of them uses their income. So once they draw that gender balance tree, they'll see that it is not balanced, because when it comes to what they own, the men own almost everything. And then when it comes again to the household, they see that they own, the income they are getting, they are using it for their own things. So from there, we start a community conversation whereby the men now are true to themselves. They are able to say, they are able to speak amongst themselves and agree that here we are being unfair, here we need to do this. So it's from there that we start men talking to men, and then men-to-men engagement sessions where some few transformed men now act as change agents to the rest of the men. And then we also take them through transformative masculinities. Growing up, the issue of culture again comes up. You are told as a man, you're supposed to be tough, you're not supposed to do this. If a man is seen maybe helping the wife in doing the household chores, the man is told that is not, you are not being masculine enough. So we go through transformative masculinity training, whereby we just encourage them to use their strengths for the benefit of everyone, not to bully and boss everyone around. So we start small by getting the champions, then they act as change agents to the rest. And through that we are getting somewhere. Yeah.
So just tell us a little bit more about these transformative masculinities. What does that mean and how does it look like? How does it work?
Like, you know, traditionally, if I may ask you, how is a man supposed to look masculine? Maybe he's supposed to be a bully, he's supposed to have many wives, he's supposed to, like, being a man is something very rough out there, especially our traditional men. They're supposed to have, like, killed an animal or something like that. And maybe being a man is coming to the house anytime you want and nobody can ask you anything because it's your house. Like, that is the perceived masculinity. But now transformative masculinity is using all that power because the society has already accorded you that power. Now you use that power to protect not only the women around you but the community as a whole. And again, given that men like being dominant, now if someone comes out, he's dominant but in a positive way, he's able to like transform a lot of people because of that power, and because other men look up to him, now he's able to transform his fellow men through now that transformative masculinity.
Yeah, I totally agree with what my colleagues have said, and especially in the place of solidarity with human rights and women's rights. Just do the right thing. We'd ask the men to just do the right thing, and the right thing here means the human right thing. If you look at the numbers, even in the policy space as we speak, we have how many governors against how many numbers? They are still in decision-making processes. If you look at our parliament, it is, yes, we've made progress, and I think that is what we are celebrating today, but still the numbers, even for men in parliament, the numbers for men in the Senate, where decisions are made, laws are made, the numbers still are skewed more towards the men. So when you sit there as men in all the decision-making places, whether it is at the national level, just do the right thing. And the right thing means is enable everyone, including the men and the women, to be able to have equal opportunities, equal benefits, and equal access to resources that are there in the nation. Just do the right thing. Whether it is again coming lower to our own homes where we live, in the communities, do the right thing, be in solidarity, speak out, you know, model. I think that's what you're talking about, modeling that it is possible to be able to work with the women and to ensure that they're able to access their rights. Yeah, and culture is not static. Culture is dynamic. It can change. I think let's be bold to be able to engage, to have conversations. And I know in a lot of the male engagement dialogue, you know, in terms of why do we do the things we do? Why is it that we, you know, behave the way we should behave? And is it right in this time and age? Is that what you want to hand over to the generations to come? And also appreciating, I know you've said fighting for our rights, but also appreciating that it's not really a fight against men. I think we are clamoring for equal opportunities as women and equal rights as women. So the men, we urge our brothers, our fathers, our husbands, just do the right thing. Do the right thing.
I like you talked about culture, and that brings me to the point of faith. We are all faith, women of faith. This Christian TV station, we are all working for Christian organizations. So I think we can focus on the Christian aspect. What is the role of faith in women empowerment? But first, even before we get there, on an individual level, what are some of the things or religious aspects that you found have conflicted your faith as a Christian woman, conflicting with your work in human rights or gender-based rights? Have you found any conflict, or do you find that your faith has merged completely with what you're doing today?
No.
Yeah, I see that. Go for it.
I am, let me just say, I am a Christian by practice and all. and working, of course, even within the Christian space. And just to also mention that we are members of the ACT Alliance. ACT Alliance is the Action by Churches Together, which is a family of faith-based organizations that are engaged in the humanitarian space. They're engaged in advocacy, in human peace and security, and gender justice, climate justice, just to underline that we are actually in the faith community. And ACT Alliance is one of the partnerships that we are, strong partnerships promoting this agenda. Now, at a personal level, I have issues.
Bring them. We are here to hear all of them.
In fact, I was just listening to my sister say, oh, we are the neck. And yeah, I struggle with that a little bit, yeah. And sometimes also I feel, especially in the gender-based violence space, God hates divorce as a narrative. Women are battered even in the churches, but God hates divorce. You know, there's a silent agreement. There's a silent vumilia too. Vumilia slap. Vumilia something else, and then vumilia, we are coming to take your body. I have a challenge with that. And I know the faith community is very, very powerful. When I think about the ACT Alliance and the convening power and the spaces that ACT Alliance and the membership does have, and also the engagements that, for instance, ACT Alliance has with the faith community, the churches, the church leaders, every single Sunday, a faith leader will stand and they have the platform to be able to preach the gospel and to be able to talk about issues affecting the society. But sometimes I feel their capacity perhaps can be strengthened in terms of appreciating gender issues to do with women's rights. I know of a faith where ni kunyenyekea na kutii, you know, which is promoted, kutii. So you don't question anything. I don't know that it's a misconception perhaps, but you don't question anything, so it still reinforces the cultural norms and practice where you don't have anything to say, you know. And in terms of leadership as well, I think it's just in the recent times that we are seeing that being modeled differently within the faith community, where you're now having women, you know, coming up to take up leadership positions in, you know, in the faith, in a lot of the faiths, maybe not all, but a number of them. I know there's a place where we struggled to do women leadership in a particular denomination, and we had to go down now to a lower level of their structure for us to be able to get women to be able to engage. So those are some of the areas that I feel, especially on gender-based violence, I think there's work to be done in that space. In as much as God hates divorce, He doesn't want you to die either. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I think we need to be able to separate that. That was personal.
Yeah, I like that personal story because as World Renew, we actually have a curriculum where we talk about demystifying scripture and some of the fallacies that we have taken up, like that one of God hates divorce. It's 2-3 words, but the bigger scripture says God hates divorce and He also hates a man who deals unjustly with his wife. That's the full scripture, but we like to take that part. We demystify things like the head and the neck not actually being scriptural, that there's actually no scripture that says that. So even within the ACT Alliances and a lot of these curriculums that we use, we do try to look at what does the Bible say vis-a-vis culture. But you know, we have to agree that a lot of our scripture is based on our culture and what works for our culture.
Yes.
Caroline, your take on faith?
I think it's perception. When I tell someone that I'm a gender expert, the first thing they ask is, are you married?
Is your marriage actually working?
Is your marriage working? Is your husband safe? Are you a Christian? Like that perception about gender, they think it's all about negative feminism. And then now about the faith, we try as much as possible to leverage on the faith for us to like deal with some of our cultural issues. Because people, especially in the rural communities that we are working with, they believe so much in their church elders, and whatever the church elder will say is law. But again, just as she put it, just as Purity said, in matters of gender-based violence at the church, I think the church sometimes is not fair, because you can even, a woman is there being battered and then she's being told to pray about it And then only like what God has joined together, no man can put asunder. Like, and that the things that are happening, some of them are happening. Even some of the church leaders are the ones maybe perpetrating this kind of things too. But because of the perceptions, then women are, even some of them die because of this belief in church, because they cannot leave their marriage because the Bible is against that and the sort. So we need to, like, in most of our work, we partner with, we especially train the church leaders separately away from the other community leaders, so that we can speak the language of the Bible to ensure that they are helping us in addressing GBV. But if you mix them with the rest, then they will stick to their Bible, you stick to the world, and the world and the and the Bible cannot mix. So you have to address them separately and take them as gender champions on board. So after the training, they can be able to, since they already have the platforms, they can use the platform to address GBV issues. Yeah.
I like that you mentioned the training of clergy as members of the church, and World Renew Act Alliance, CFGB, has done a lot of work in that area. And I'm sure, Metrin, you can agree with me, from the Anglican Development Services, our own Archbishop of the Anglican Church, the Right Reverend Ole Sapit, gave a very strong message on this network about gender-based violence during the 16 days of activism, and his stand and the stand of his clergy. And I'm just wondering, from the example that the Archbishop has given, the trainings that the clergy have been able to do, as ADS Pwani, what changes are you seeing within the faith structures?
I would like to start with the personal view of how I would say this, because one, there is an expectation that has always been there and tailored towards looking at somebody as maybe a leader in a church, let's say a woman. There is a way in which you're expected to look like as part of, maybe you are the women's leader, and somebody will view you like someone who does not go through what can be mentioned in the aspects of gender-based violence. And as she mentioned, there is that part of submission, yes, and you're like, you have to submit to whatever has come. I think that should not be the narrative. And as faith actors, we would advocate for the part to have a discussion and see if we are looking at the aspect faith, what are the views that we should be having when it comes to issues such as the gender-based violence issues. What is the expectation, you see? And there is that aspect also of forgiveness. He's your husband, forgive him, you know. So such happens, and it comes to a place where you would lose this person as a Christian, because one, maybe an act has happened to me today, and yes, I forgave. Tomorrow I forgave, and the other day I also forgave. But after some time, maybe someone will sit back and say, if this is what happens in the church, I'll continue maybe getting hurt at the essence of being a wife in this, then I better stop going to church. So you're losing that person even as a Christian. Now coming back to the 16 days of activism, as an organization, and basically in the project that I'm working with, I mentioned also that we are working with youths to see to it that they are able to know their rights and able also to access the services of the sexual reproductive health at the facilities. So with this, when they are able to know what is right for them, when to say yes, when to say no, what they are able to do at their young age, as they grow up with it, they'll have that safe space to know that as a young girl, or rather as a man, as a young man, I'm supposed to do this, and these are the routes that I'm supposed to have followed and follow, so that my life can be in shape.
And Ruth, I'm just thinking also that it's time we also minimize the divide between faith-based and maybe women's rights or human rights practitioners. And I know even within diaconia, remember we introduced ourselves as rights-based and faith-based. There are things that interface, there are common areas that we agree on the dignity of humanity, and then so that then all these violations are are not dignifying any, whether it's a man or a woman or a child. It is not dignifying when you treat them, when you exclude them. Those are areas of agreement, whether you're faith-based or you are not faith-based, you're doing a human rights piece of work. And so then looking at it, and I know within the ACT Alliance, in the gender justice, that is the thinking, being able to work with others, encourage partnerships that then minimize that kind of demystify even the narratives. We think faith-based. I remember being in a coalition where it had both faith-based and others that are not faith-based, and it was at one point very heated, you know, in terms of you are the people who propagate gender violence and kugandamiza kina mama, and the faith is thinking we have structures, there's a way we do things, but then looking at what is common. What is it? Because we're working for dignity in human beings and human life. Let's focus on those areas and then use our different influences. The faith community, like you said, has a lot of influence at the national, at the community, in our psyche. There's a lot that can be able, that they are doing and can continue to do. Diaconia, we are soon be launching a publication that speaks to the same. How do you bridge rights-based and faith-based engagements? I think in a couple of, soon we'll be launching that publication, just trying to demystify that there are certain things that we believe together, and then there are those that we don't agree, and we move on.
The issue of faith has blown up. I'm getting messages. Some agreeing, some disagreeing. So, Pastor Maureen, now the pastors have come, and I love it. I love it, the pastors. Pastor Maureen, we are hearing you from Langata, and you're saying, I love the conversation and I support women empowerment. Please talk about the issue about balancing between submission and empowerment. And where can we as women, we need to draw the line between the above, the line between activism and feminism.
Submission.
The line between submission and empowerment.
I think for me it will be important just to define at a personal level what is submission and what is activism, because what would mean submission to whatever the current world look like is what is not supposed to be like taken up. Yeah. You don't impose something to me and tell me to submit because I'm a woman and I'm supposed to submit. No. So it's important to define and have boundaries. What is submission? Yeah.
What is submission?
I think as Purity said, culture is dynamic. Culture is not static. And also submission is very relative. Like what, just as Metrin has said, what it means to submit maybe in my house is totally different from what it means in another household.
Yeah.
So, like you're supposed to, like with your spouse, I'm sure maybe even before you get married, you have that kind of conversation. Like, for me to feel respected as a man, what do you need to do? And for me to feel appreciated as a woman, what do I have to do so that you can feel so? But we cannot like do a blanket submission means ABCD. Because even in this today world where the men and women are supposed to work, you cannot maybe start saying that I can, that as a wife, as a husband, I have to be served, my clothes have to be washed by my wife for her to have submitted. You have to delegate some of these roles. So the difference between submission and empowerment is specific, context specific, and it's also personal. Yeah.
I'd even invite our viewers to keep telling us what they think, what is submission, the definition. You want something security.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it. And the way it has been put, I think submission is, of course, let me say what I think submission is not. Submission is not oppression. Yeah, submission is not oppression. You don't say that I am not submitting because according to you, I am speaking my mind, of course respectfully. Whereas, or I am following your way, I have no say. That is not submission. That is a level of oppression. Yeah, so I think the reverse is what is submission, that I can be able to still be able to express. And I say this, by the way, you know, some people might think I am not pro-family. I'm actually married for 20 years to one man, so just to clarify.
And he's safe.
Yeah, and he's safe so far, just to clarify. So then I think that's important, the fact that you are empowered. What is an empowered woman? This is a woman who understands who she is. This is a woman who is able to access, to use her entire abilities that are God-given to be able to be productive in the world. That is an empowered woman. And this empowered woman is coming to a union where they are coming together and being able to push an agenda with the family to make the world a better place and a better life for themselves. That is the empowered, that is my view of an empowered woman. She's educated, she has access to resources, and she's utilizing all her abilities to be able to contribute to the family and to a better world altogether. Yeah. Feminism, I think sometimes the word has been thrown negatively to imagine it is an anti-men. Not necessarily, because feminism, I like saying it's a buffet. There are very many strands of feminism, you know. Of course, there's a radical and all that. But for us as Diaconia, we actually work based on feminist principles. And what we mean by that is that we are very intentional about confronting power and the power structures. And feminism being then that movement that engages and challenges social, political, economic structures that continue to generate poverty, oppression, and violence. So it's not necessarily anti-men, although there are strands, of course, when you read through, there are many strands of feminism, but that is not necessarily. It's just a question of the power dynamics and being able to boldly engage and boldly confront for the betterment of those that are oppressed, in this case, women.
If I may add something on feminism, I think for Canadian Footprints Bank, we use the feminist policy, feminist international assistance policy, which means that it is basically inclusion, like bringing everyone on board. And we just don't go men and women, but we go further into women. What are the levels of women? Because, you know, as women, there are different levels of women. There are women who are educated, some are not educated, some have disabilities, even in terms of maybe racism. So we go into what we call intersectionality, which is part of feminism. And again, people normally just take feminism, they take it as a sort of activism and not feminism. But feminism is just bringing everyone on board and giving them equal opportunities. But activism is agitating for something very specific. And that is what now, maybe when the women are not being given some certain rights, for example, the affirmative action in Kenya, the Constitution has given us these specific seats, but no one is giving it to us. So you have to go into activism so that you can get whatever is being denied to you.
Yeah. Sometimes when I'm training with clergy, or especially bishops, I like to ask bishops, do you have a daughter? And they'll say yes. Do you believe she should go to school? Yes. She should have access to healthcare? Yes. When she's grown up, do you think she should have a piece of land? And many will tell me, I've already bought her a piece of land. So I say to them, but my Lord Bishop, you are a feminist. And they cannot believe. Because I think feminism has just gotten this thing that feminism and empowerment means that we want to shout at men and jump from the rooftop and just be like, I'm not cooking. No, we are feminists. We agree to all these things and we cook. We'll wash your clothes when we are able to and when we can and when we want to, but we will not wash them because you beat us. So I think that's the difference, right? Blair from Thika says, Happy Women's Day.
Thank you.
And he has a question that is also echoed by someone else about, I'll just put two together. Jacinta from Mulolongo and Brian from Thika, you have almost the same question, and you're saying, in this modern age where women are again empowered, and they can provide for themselves, sometimes even more than the man can provide, what is the role of a man in the woman's life then? And the other part of the question is, if now women can support themselves and they can be providers, basing this on Genesis, where God said the woman is a helpmate suitable for a man, then what is this help that the Bible talks about?
Those ones are hard.
Transformative masculinity. Is the role of a man only to provide?
What is the man providing? It is not only in terms of material support. They are providing security, emotional support. I mean, we should not see just provision for the material things. Like now, since a woman is working, she has her own money, she doesn't need a man. There are many other aspects of our life that men provide by being there. Because I believe most of us, like maybe all of us on this panel, are married. We still have our money, but we still need our men.
Oh, yeah.
Because they provide more than just the money. Yeah. Even if we have the money, we cannot even get children without the help of our men. So
true. And even us sitting here on the panel means that there's probably someone somewhere taking up some other things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what is then the meaning of a helpmeet? Scripture. Christians in the house.
A helpmate is just some, like, I will put this in the context of a house girl. A house can run without a house girl, but a house girl plays a very critical role in the day-to-day running of our household. So, as a helper, maybe as a woman, maybe by me and having some form of income, I'm able to support my husband to run some of the family projects. And by the fact that I went to school, I'm able to help my husband in terms of decision making, even in taking care of my children. I'm being a helper in as much as I have my own money, but I'm being helpful to him in ways that maybe I could not have been able to if I was not empowered. Yeah.
I think I can take a stab at some of the work that we do with clergy and some of the curriculums that we use. And one of the things we talk about is the aspect of the helpmate. The Hebrew word, I've forgotten the Hebrew word, but the Hebrew word that was used for, it's actually helpmeet, is used 3 times in the Bible. One to refer in the Garden of Eden to Eve as the helpmate to Adam. Secondly, that same Hebrew word is used for someone who would come to a king's aid. When a king is in battle and he's losing, or he doesn't have enough force, that same word in Hebrew of a helpmeet is another king who comes behind him as a savior and brings reinforcement. The other third word where that word in Hebrew is used is for the Holy Spirit. So to me, when we are talking about the role of a helpmeet, it's these things that the Holy Spirit brings to us as Christians is what I think we need to model as wives as a helpmate, to be counsel. So it's not the aspect, we now in our culture as Africans took it as head and neck, the neck being less than the head. Not necessarily, but it is for me to walk alongside this man who has a God-given mandate to take care of God's creation, to build family, and me coming alongside as when you are weak, I'm coming behind you with extra force, with extra resources, with wisdom, with comfort, with love, the things that the Holy Spirit brings to us. So in my opinion, and looking at it scripturally, that is what the helpmeet is. It does not mean that then the woman becomes less of. It's like being in a government. You're here, chairman, vice chair, we're both bringing things to the table. I don't know if you agree, but that is what we have been advocating for, especially as World Renew, that it is not one against the other.
Yeah.
Right?
Maybe just thinking loud on what you've shared, as you're talking about women being helpmates and still looking at that perception of saying that women should be submissive. Do you think if I'm a helpmate and I would like to give maybe counsel to my husband, is he going to take it?
Of course.
Why should he not?
Okay.
Yeah.
Bringing it up maybe to the communities where we feel like women are vulnerable and men are above them. So I'm a woman, yes, and I come tell my husband we are supposed to be doing this, or because I've seen this, I would like us to go this way. So in this, I think there is more need for us to have that thought and say that as we work with these communities and get to help these women have spaces, it's still essential to have these men also come on board to be able to know that as decisions are being made from the households and in the families that they are leading, it's not cast to stone that it's the man who is supposed to be making decisions in the family. Yeah.
And I actually think there's the moment it's an economic power issue, because I tend to think that for men it becomes a bit. It's been presented, I'm not so sure it's biblically, but the way we live in the society is that the provision is from an economic point of view, you know, where then I should have more and therefore I'm providing for my family economically, financially. I mean, sorting things from that perspective. And when the tables turn, then it becomes difficult for the men in terms of being able to see themselves still as big providers. Yeah, because provision then, my playing a role of provision, I have to be at a higher place. You're not providing from a lower place. But then the way the life has gone is that now, and there are models, by the way, I am aware of so many models within the faith community where even with maybe the women earning more, they are still able to have some synergy and siphoning within the family that is still useful, whereby the men understand their role beyond just having higher income, you know. And the women also appreciate their role, that the fact that sasa you have more income doesn't mean you namea pembe, you know, you have horns. That is not the idea, especially if you're thinking from the faith community. Yeah, that's different. You can be gracious within the capacities that God has given you as a woman. You can be able to, yes, gender equality, you have access to resources, opportunities, you're flying all over, you're making decisions, but at the end of the day, you're carrying that role as a woman and as a wife with grace, you know, being able to see the bigger picture. And the man is also aware that the fact that you're in those spaces that are looking very high and mighty, that he still is a man, you know. And I say this because some of the programming experiences we have, like, and this links to climate change issues, the crisis, is that the men in the communities have been defined by their wallet being the cows, those things they own. And so when they are wiped out, they are so disgruntled, they don't know then how to be a man, because this has gone, that which defined them as men has gone. And by the way, that also powers gender-based violence. And even, of course, sometimes even get into conflict, you know, resource-based conflict and all that. But I wish and pray that, and maybe that is where the investments also should go into this kind of dialogue, that men are still men, and the provision doesn't have to be, it is always up. You can still provide, and the woman is still probably earning more. There is still, and probably should also have men speaking out, you know. I mean, the times I've had men who are in those situations speak out, it's very powerful in terms of being able to counter the narrative that you always have to be up, and when you're down then umekaliwa, or your things can't work. And maybe a call out to the sisters, that yes, we are getting gender equality, we are getting access to opportunities and all those things. It is not a card to again meet upon our brothers the same violence, whether it's emotional, physical, whatever, on account of now you have equal opportunities, and probably you're even earning, you know, having more economic power.
So I think the issue of culture is coming out loud, and Evelyn had actually asked, how can we empower women in the family setup while still respecting and honoring culture? And I think that is something you have alluded to. We had a pastor saying that from his perspective, it really is about how we are teaching the word, the intersection between faith and culture, and not pointing fingers at the church per se and saying that the church has failed, but saying that the church is also working towards giving an education. So I guess sometimes the point of conversation is to open the box, let everything pour out, and then help people will figure out themselves how to pack the box again and see what still fits in the box and what needs to be thrown out. So I just want to give us an opportunity to speak a little bit about partnerships. What partnerships have we been working with in our organizations that have been helpful to us? What partnerships would we like moving forward to strengthen to bring together this work of accelerating women's empowerment.
Myself? Okay, I will start, yeah. I think we appreciate that the gender agenda is a broad agenda. It's an agenda for all humanity. And so the partnerships really are broad. You're thinking about partnerships, of course, within the faith community. And it's very exciting, of course, to keep remembering outfits like the ACT Alliance that we are members of, that bring in different agencies with different mandates, but collectively working towards humanitarian action and the other areas, gender justice, climate justice. That's important within the faith community to explore those platforms. We also need, there are partnerships we've had with where it's not just the faith community, but with women's rights organizations, with children's rights organizations within the different sectors that we have, bringing in their expertise, their mandate in being able to power a collective agenda. The private sector is also critical in terms of we work in different places. Women are across in different places. When you talk about economic inclusion, for instance, there are businesses, whether it's the banking sector, whether it's the companies where we work, we need to be able to establish partnerships with the private sector to promote gender equalities, because there are also issues around gender in those particular companies in the private sector, that also we need to be able to see equality, you know, even equal pay for equal work, those kind of things, because then we carry all this, the fact that a woman is seen less, we go with that notion even within the companies that where we are working. Some of the companies perhaps may not have policies, you know, that then promote gender. It's just the other recently that we saw, you know, now for maternal issues, men and women, you know, men will go for a certain time, you know, and all that. So I think those are important partnerships in being able to push the agenda, and also being able to work together with international organizations. We all have a different role. We're able to caucus certain agendas at the international level, at the regional level, and also at the community and at the national level. Those are important partnerships that we need to be able to explore, and whether it is through funding or technical capacity building or solidarity. I mean, the things we are speaking about here were canvassed through the UN system. You know, the Beijing Platform for Action was a global thing that then comes down to Kenya, and it is domesticated in one way or another. Those are important partnerships in this gender agenda.
Thank you very much. As for me, as I said earlier, I'm working for the Canadian Footprints Bank, and we work through partnerships. For example, the Canadian Footprints Bank is working in Kenya, but it is not directly implementing the projects that we are doing. It's a global response to hunger, and our mission is to end hunger. So we work through member organizations who have now partner organizations. For example, in Kenya, we are working with NCCK, we are working with Atra Kenya, we are working with Fadhili Trust, we are working with also UDO, and the staff from CFGB are being hosted at World Renew. World Renew is a member organization. So basically what I'm saying is that CFGB cannot work without partnership. Like, it relies on partners to implement its activities. So we are very passionate, and we contextualize everything to go according to what our partners will need. Like, for example, in our program, we are working in 3 regions: Ethiopia, Chimanimani, and Kenya. But whatever is, although we try to implement things at the same level, but we contextualize according to the partners and to the laws of that specific partner. So we are very passionate about it, and we not only partner with our partners, but also we work closely with government officials, CBOs, and also we attend like global forums like the COP28, so that we can know what is going up there and what we need to do to up our game. We are also a member organization of ACT Alliance, because CFGB basically consists of 15 Canadian churches. So, and even most of our donors are churches and Christians. So we are very passionate about partnership, and we look forward to doing more. to our partners.
Yeah, thank you. So for ADS funding, we are implementing partners. And I would say in the interventions that we do carry out, we've got different partners that are getting to fund us to be able to do the interventions in the communities, starting right away with World Renew, who are the ones that are funding the project we are doing on maternal and newborn child health and adolescent reproductive health. So it's important to mention that each and every intervention that we are carrying in the different communities that we are serving in the region have got the different partners. For instance, we have a project, the Coast Integrated Peace and Livelihoods, which is funded by the Bread for the World. We have the WHH also funding us in a project in the communities. But more importantly, as we look at these interventions, they are both tailored towards gender equality, even as the interventions are being carried out in the fields. And so it's important to have maybe partnering with the Ministry of Health, which we do, to be able to give whatever pertains to the maternal health for these women and children in the community. And also important to partner with the non-governmental organizations and stakeholders working within the regions that we are in, so that together we can bring greater impact to the community. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking your time on this special day, and also thank you to our viewers for having listened in and even been a huge source of engagement and encouragement even as we sat here and dissected through these issues. Ours has been to unpack all these things, help you see and think about the girls, the women, your mothers, grandmothers, aunties, and on this International Women's Day, our question to you is, what is your take home today and what is going to be your role in making sure that women have equal rights and are also coming to the table in terms of resources and decision making? Thank you so much, Purity, for your insights, and Caroline and Metrine. I know some have had to travel from really far to be here with us on a Saturday morning. Thank you so much for your time and your expertise. And as we wind up, we'd just like to say that World Renew is in partnership with KATV. And in this ongoing partnership, we are looking forward to having more episodes that will be covering more on our work in health, in gender, food security, and livelihoods. And we hope that you'll continue to stay tuned and engage with us and with our work. Have a very beautiful International Women's Day.